Hello, welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. It's the end of August and we're stepping into a new month, so guess what video it is? Yes, I'm gonna talk about every game I've played in August. I've played some amazing games this month and I'm excited to talk about them with you, so without further ado, let's go. I just realized when I sat down to edit this video that every single game I played in August are actually August releases, so while this is still basically the usual monthly recap series of what I have been playing, I guess it's also a collection of mini reviews of some of the really interesting cozy and indie games we got in August, and hopefully it will give you a good idea of whether any of these games might be something you would enjoy. The first game I want to talk about is one I have been waiting for years, and that is Out and About. I've been following the development of this game for such a long time, so of course I was really excited when it was finally released, and when I first started the game, the charm hit me instantly. About 30 minutes in, I realized I had already fallen in love with so many little details. The skipping animation, the way your character walks downhill, the coziness of the world around you, it all felt magical. And then there is the plant identification mechanic. I did not expect to get so caught up in looking at leaves and flowers, but I felt like I was learning so many things, so I was hooked. The first 2 hours of the game had me wanting to scream because of how cute everything was. But as I kept playing, some of that initial excitement started to fade. The first place where my enthusiasm dipped was with the cooking system. I expected something interactive, maybe a small mini game where you chop, stir, or prepare ingredients, even if only through QuickTime events. Instead, you simply select cook and the food is instantly ready. There is a cute short animation, but it's the same one every time, so after a while it does not feel very engaging. The same thing happened when it came to repairing or fixing things in the world. For example, if there is a blocked tunnel, you simply hand over the resources and it is repaired immediately. I really wish the game gave us something a little more immersive here, like waiting a day for repairs to be completed, or at least showing a short animation of the work being done. That extra touch would make the world feel more alive and responsive rather than static. Another area that felt underdeveloped was the photo mode. I love photo modes in games, especially in cozy ones, because they let me slow down and really appreciate the scenery. But here, the options are so limited and you can't really do anything with it. I don't think there was a way to view the photos I had taken, and you also cannot hide the HUD or play around with things like camera angles or lighting. For such a beautiful game, it feels like a shame not to have a richer photography system. Then there is the structure of the gameplay itself. From what I've played so far, the game mostly follows a main story made up of fetch quests. I was expecting something more open and explorative, where I could wander around, spend lots of time with the plants, and simply exist in nature. Instead, most of my time was spent running around town, talking to NPCs, and progressing in a fairly linear way. I would say it was about 70% talking and questing, and only 30% harvesting or identifying plants. That ratio surprised me because what originally drew me to the game was the promise of those calm, nature-filled moments. I also ran into quite a few typos and little errors. For example, in one quest called Town Tonic, the text said, "Help Barbara restore her remedies," and then right underneath it said, "Talk to Barbara." She's supposed to be called Barbara, so 2 typos in a single quest feels too much and too distracting. I also noticed some phrasing that felt awkward. I was reading the dialogue out loud in my playthrough video and I had to pause many times to understand the text. Of course, these are the kind of things that can be forgiven in early access, but I think it's still worth mentioning. But even with those frustrations, I see a lot of potential in Out and About. I understand why the developers decided to release it in early access, because it feels like the kind of game that could benefit a lot from community feedback. If they listen to players and continue refining these systems, I really think the game could grow into something beautiful and memorable. And despite my critiques, I can't and don't want to downplay what's already there. It feels so cozy to play and I adore the art style. I even learned how to identify some plants that I never knew about before, which was such a delightful surprise for me as someone who doesn't know much about plants at all. So even though I think there is still a lot of work to be done, I do still recommend Out and About in its current state. There's definitely fun to be had, and if you're looking for something cozy, gentle, and relaxing, this game already offers that. Everything I said comes from a place of really believing in the game's potential, and maybe being a little sad to see it not fully realized yet. I will keep playing it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it evolves toward its full release. Next, I finally got to play one of my most anticipated releases of the year, Tiny Bookshop, and oh my god, it is everything I've ever wanted and more. The premise is simple but so charming. One day we pack up our things, leave our old life behind and move to this quiet seaside town called Buxtonbury, where we start running our very own tiny bookshop on wheels. From literally the very first second, the townsfolk warmly accept us, and that alone sets such a comforting tone. Even the little background stories for the characters are cozy and sweet. For example, there is Tilde, who used to run the old bookstore in town. She's retired now, but she often stops by our shop because she misses the atmosphere and the feeling of being surrounded by books. Then there's Fern, who writes for the local newspaper. Each person you meet fits perfectly with the energy of the game and with the town itself. As someone who has always been an avid book reader and loves exploring all kinds of genres, this game feels like a dream come true. Checking the newspaper every day for reasonably priced mystery book bundles or for used book boxes is so cute, but of course what's even better is selling these books and having conversations with customers. Some customers will ask for recommendations and suddenly you are sorting through your shelves trying to match them with their perfect next read. Other times you stumble across a favorite book of your own or something that has been sitting on your TBR list for months or years, and it just feels so dreamy. There's even this small delight when a customer starts talking passionately about a book they love and you realize you have never heard of it before, so of course you end up adding it to your own TBR. It's such a fun loop of sharing and discovery. Of course, what makes this whole game even more special is that the books in Tiny Bookshop are real. It's not a made-up catalog of generic titles, but actual books you could go and pick up in real life. Because of that, the game ended up teaching me about so many interesting books I had never encountered before, and it also made me look differently at books I had heard of but never really looked into. Like, the amount of times I paused the game to search up a book and add it to my TBR is a lot. There are also a lot of little touches that make the game feel richer and more alive. The flea market is a lovely addition where you can find unique things, and decorating your shop with small items that boost certain genres adds another layer of strategy without ever breaking the cozy atmosphere. The quests, the charming interactions with townsfolk, and the beautifully drawn cozy locations all come together to create a place you want to keep revisiting. In terms of gameplay, it is a lot slower than you might expect. Once your bookshop is open for the day, it almost has the rhythm of an idle game. You spend a lot of time waiting, watching the flow of the town, and occasionally helping a customer who needs a recommendation. For some players, this pace might feel too slow, but for me, it honestly fits the theme perfectly. That said, I don't think it's the type of game you can play for 5 hours straight without it starting to feel dull or repetitive at one point. Instead, it feels like the perfect game to play in short sessions, like one peaceful hour in the morning with your cup of coffee, perfect for easing your brain into the day. If I had to name a negative, there's only really one that stands out, and that is that I wish we could actually see inside the bookshop. The entire perspective is from outside, and while that is still charming, part of me kept wanting to peek inside and watch how it looks when people are browsing, or like to organize the shelves while we're actually in the bookshop. but honestly that is such a small thing compared to how much I loved everything else. Tiny Bookshop did not disappoint me at all, and I say that as someone who had big expectations going into it. It is so cozy, heartfelt, and I think it's exactly the dream game for cozy gamers who are also book lovers. Then I played the Off remake. I've never played the original, but I heard about it for years and I knew how much of an influence it had on this genre. So I went in with curiosity but without the ability to compare the remake to the original. What I can say though is that playing this version has actually made me want to go back and try the original one day, preferably in French since that was the language it was originally made in. It feels like the kind of game where the language and the cultural context probably adds an extra layer of atmosphere, so it's given me even more motivation to improve my French before I dive in. One of my favorite things about the game is the soundtrack. The music is incredible and fits perfectly with the tone of the world. And then of course there's the world itself, which is unlike anything else I've played before. The lore feels so unique and there's this pleasantly grotesque energy in the whole game. It's unsettling at times, but not in a way that pushes you away, more in a way that makes you lean closer and pay more attention. Right now I'm more than 50% in, but I still didn't finish it since August was such a packed month with new releases. I've been waiting for a long time that my attention kept slipping to other games, but I will absolutely go back to finish it as soon as I have a little breathing room. I think this game deserves my sole attention and focus without anything else distracting me. And yes, I'm very happy and proud I managed to talk about this game without saying beat off even once and used all the alternatives I could think of instead, like finish, complete, and go through. After that I played Herdling. This is the newest release from Automotive, the team behind the Far games, and it has that similar quiet atmospheric style, but the experience itself feels very different. Instead of controlling a large machine across desolate landscapes, we step into the role of a young shepherd guiding a herd of horned creatures called calicorns. From the very beginning of the game, we meet a calicorn and name it, we quickly start feeling attached and soon we have a whole herd of them and we lead them through forests, mountains, dangerous environments, and yes, they can get injured and even permanently die, which is not something I expected from this game. That feels really heavy because you're basically responsible for keeping these animals safe throughout the game, but luckily there's also an immortality option if you don't want to deal with that stress. And other than that, I promise it's really such a chill, cozy game. These past few weeks have been heavy and overwhelming for me, and playing Herdling honestly really made me feel better. Just walking with my herd without any dialogue except the sounds of the environment, taking care of them, and moving forward step by step gave me a sense of calm I really needed. I did make a whole separate review video on this, so I won't talk more about this one here as to not repeat myself, but if you enjoy quiet, wordless adventures like Journey, Up to Gris, I think you would find Herdling to be a really beautiful experience as well. Then we have Waterpark Simulator. As much as I love simulator games, I usually try not to play them too often because they completely suck me in and I get addicted very easily, and before I even realize I've been playing for hours. But when I saw this one, the idea of managing an entire water park was just too fun to pass up, and honestly it's really delivered. It's so chaotic, funny, and surprisingly detailed. What I loved most is that you do absolutely everything yourself. I mean, of course you get to hire staff at one point, but if you want to, you can do everything yourself. And you're not just designing the water park, you're also printing out flyers and handing them to people passing by your park, selling tickets at the entrance, checking people's bracelets to make sure they paid, and kicking out the troublemakers that sneaked in. On top of that, you step into the role of a lifeguard since there are occasionally people who drown, or run the food stand where you make hot dogs and lemonade. And it is not just simply pressing one button, the customers have specific requests like some want a plain hot dog or one with only mustard or a lemonade with ice. Meanwhile, you are restocking supplies, repairing rides, and trying to keep everything running smoothly. That might sound a bit overwhelming, but in my opinion, the balance is actually great. Many simulator games either move at a very slow pace that you don't know what to do next and get bored, or pile on so many tasks that you burn out. This one manages to sit right in the middle. You're always busy, but it is busy in a fun way where you never stop and wonder, okay, what now? Do I just wait here for the day to end? It keeps you constantly engaged. And I had so many moments where I laughed out loud because the game loves to throw absurd situations at you. Like, I was repairing a water slide and out of nowhere, my character just went down it in the middle of the job and I ended up splashing into the pool. You can even give hesitant guests a little push if they're too scared to jump off the diving board or go down the slide, and you can run around with a water gun splashing random people. It feels like the developers really sat down and thought, what are all the silly little things you might want to do at a water park, and then just added them in. That said, one thing that felt like a missed opportunity was the lack of customization. You cannot play as a female character and there are no customization options at all, even though the game lets you see yourself in the third person. I really hope they add this feature down the line since the game is still in early access. But yeah, overall, if you're looking for something lighthearted and pure chaotic fun, I would recommend checking out Waterpark Simulator. Next, I played Ritual of Raven. This is a cozy story-driven farming game with a really unique twist. So we step into the role of an apprentice witch, and instead of spending our days planting and watering crops by hand like we would do in most farming sims, here we have a deck of enchanted cards to control whimsical constructs that do the gardening for us. These magical little helpers plow the fields, water and harvest the crops, and it feels almost like we're casting spells to orchestrate the farm. At first, it definitely takes a little while to get used to because we're basically programming our constructs, but once it clicks, it becomes a really fun mechanic. The story begins when our character is pulled through a strange portal and taken in by Sage, a powerful witch whose world has been thrown into chaos. All across the land, unstable portals have opened, and it becomes our task to track down the missing portal keepers and help restore balance while growing our own magical ability. I really enjoyed how much attention was given to the other characters in this world. The side characters actually feel fleshed out, and I feel like we really get to know them. I also really like the storytelling, since it's rare to have detailed narratives in cozy farming games, so it reminded me of Wildflowers in that sense. The game is also very charming with the small details. I love the character customization, the little character portraits. It's such beautiful art. And it all feels really fresh, like trying to learn how to play a farming game again after so many years, and actually paying attention and using my brain to understand the farming system. It felt nice since so many farming games share the same exact gameplay and we do the same things in all of them, which I'm not saying this as a bad thing at all, since that familiar comfort is why we love them so much in the first place and why we unwind with those games after a long day. But if you're looking for something different within this genre, I think Ritual of Raven really delivers. Though I'm not gonna lie, there were definitely many moments where the system confused me and I caught myself wishing we could just pick up a watering can and do the farming ourselves, but as we progress and unlock more cards for automation, it starts to flow more naturally. At a certain point, I really started feeling like I was growing into the role of a witch, slowly mastering the tools and learning to trust the constructs. I think with its witchy vibes, soft pixel art style, and slightly mysterious tone, Ritual of Raven really sets the mood for the fall season we're heading into, and I would really recommend to check it out. And finally, I played Animal Shelter 2. I just realized this one isn't actually an August release, but a late July release, but anyway, it still counts, okay? As you can already tell by the name, in this one we run our very own animal shelter. I played the first animal shelter when it first launched, and while I liked the concept, I remember that after a few hours it started to feel very repetitive. It was cute, but the gameplay loop got stale pretty quickly. With this one, there is definitely more content and more variety in what you can actually do day to day. A lot of features that were DLCs in the first game are now part of the base game here, which is honestly the bare minimum you would expect from a sequel. But honestly, if you keep your expectations low, you can be happy with everything. Anyway, I think there are some genuinely cool new additions. For example, now you can do animal rescue missions. These are a big improvement because they make you instantly more attached to the animals you're helping. Seeing the conditions they come from and knowing you've saved them from those situations adds a lot more depth. Unfortunately, there aren't that many different scenarios, and it feels like there's a ton of potential that isn't being used. Rescue missions could be such a strong feature if there were more variety or like different types of emergencies. One big improvement is that there is now co-op mode with up to 6 players. I think it could be really fun to run a shelter with friends. I feel like it would be such a cozy time. Now, on the surface, this game is extremely cute by default. Taking care of the animals, playing with them, and finding them new homes is just so heartwarming. But it definitely has many flaws. I ran into quite a few bugs that made me want to stop playing, and the sound effects and the interface kind of feel like a mobile game, which feels a bit cheap for a PC release. And there are just so many small details that could have been done better and would have added a lot of depth to the overall experience. For instance, feeding the animals is so basic, there's only one type of food and that's it. I wish there were different food options depending on the animal, like junior food, sterilized formulas, or even flavor preferences that made each pet feel more unique. The same goes for interactions at the park. You can take your animals out, which is so cute, but the strangers you encounter don't react at all. Imagine if they wanted to pet your dog, comment on how cute your cat is, or I don't know, make small talk and learn we run an animal shelter, and then they might even offer to adopt one and we give them our card. Okay, I don't know, that might be too much, but things like this would make the world feel more alive and give the gameplay more personality. I know I've listed quite a few cons, but Animal Shelter 2 is still a really sweet, wholesome game because of its concepts. Taking care of animals and matching them with the right families is naturally rewarding. I just think it's important not to go in with huge expectations. It's cute, it's cozy, it has potential, but it's also rough around the edges, so just know that before you buy the game. And yeah, that was everything I've played in August. Let me know what you've played and how your month was in general. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week with a new video. Until then, stay cozy and bye bye!